Hello, my name is Jackson England, and I am a third-year law student at Penn State Law. I am currently in the Minglona Lab for Gender and Economic Equity. For the lab's Witnesses to Herstory project, we are capturing the personal experiences of women during a dynamic era in the United States. Today, I have the privilege of welcoming Amada Avila to join me. She is a Cuban-American woman, a former weekly newspaper agency owner, and a grandmother. Thank you, Ms. Avila, for joining me.
Thank you for inviting me.
Tell me a little bit about your childhood. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Cuba, of Cuban parents. My on my father's side, they were from Spain, and on my mother's side, they were from Italy. Um, Cuba at that time, before Castro, was a wonderful place to live, and I was blessed with having a absolutely amazing, good parents. So it was a happy childhood, family oriented, happy times. It was just, I have the greatest memory of my growing up years in Cuba, pre Castro.
Can you tell me a little more about your parents?
Well, my father was an accountant. My mother was a housewife. She came from a family of 15 brothers and sisters. So she had 14 siblings. Her father had fought in the war for Cuba's independence. And he was a landowner, but nonetheless, he left the family to go and fight in the war. He was a high ranking officer, and he used to compose music, used to play the guitar, and the duty to free Cuba took precedence over the family duties. But he was a good father and a good husband. And eventually, when the war ended, he went back to his normal life. And the stories that I know from my mother and my mother happened to live until 111 years and 5 months. Her youngest brother lived to 102, and he died in Cuba a couple of years ago. So I come from a long line of very strong women, and fiercely independent, and free thinkers, and above everything else, family and freedom. That's what I was brought up with. And I still feel the same way.
How did your mom and dad divide household responsibilities?
There was no dividing at that time. uh, my mother did the housework, she never worked. And my father went out and worked and brought the family substance home. But in my father's era, men just did not participate in household work. No, that was done by the women. And at that time in Cuba, it was a norm to hire a babysitter to take care of the kids, or a housekeeper. It was a different time and era.
Did you have siblings?
I happened to have one brother. I am 8 years older than him. So I was brought up as an only child until my brother was born. He lives in Cranford, and we're still very close. So we see each other frequently. But he's my aunt. I have two cousins that they were independently, the only child of their mothers. One lives in Puerto Rico. She fled Cuba, and the family, her husband's family, and her, they settled in Puerto Rico because they were in the banking business. And at that time, his father was able to get a transfer from an American bank to a Puerto Rican bank, settled in Puerto Rico. And then my other cousin has always lived in Miami. They are what I call my sisters, because there's one year difference in ages. My oldest cousin is a year older than me, and I am a year older than the one in Miami. So we're closer than sisters. We have an excellent relationship. We talk on the phone constantly. We see each other when we can. Um, but that's it. The family is not, we don't have as many members of the family because obviously on my mother's side, they passed away. But I'm very close to my cousins.
When you were a little girl, did you know what you wanted to do as an adult?
No, that thought never passed my mind. I just childhood, play, just have fun, but
Mm.
never the thought. No. Mm-mm.
Did you have any role models or heroes?
Well, actually, I I was very close to my father because I would say that we were more emotionally attached. We share many ideas. My mother was more strict, but nonetheless, I always admired my mother and my aunts. They were my role models at that time because they were very successful women bringing up their families, and they had this nurturing role in the family. And even from an early age, I always admired that. But at that time, when I was a child, it wasn't like today that you have the internet, television, and you have all these figures, all these so-called personalities, call to personalities. Uh, in that era, we didn't have that. So you were closer to admire the people that you knew more about who they were. But that's how I would phrase it.
When you were little, what would you read?
Uh, we I always liked reading. I always liked reading. So I would do the book assignments that I would get in school. Um, but I don't I don't think of a book that I could say at that age that I was particularly fond of. Later on, things change. But at that time, I just do, whatever the assignment in school was.
Mhm. When did you move to the United States?
We came to the United States in 1957, 2 years prior to the downfall of the Batista government, and then Castro came in. Um, we settled in Elizabeth, New Jersey, where my father's brother had arrived um, a year before. They eventually moved to California. My father comes from a very small family, very small. So that was it. We came here. We settled in Elizabeth. We went to school there. And I have happy memories of Elizabeth too. I didn't feel that I was the change, even though at that age is significant, but I didn't find it that overpowering. Like some people, oh, I moved to another country. No, uh, I transitioned very easily with no issues or problems, and uh, I did have some knowledge of English in Cuba because in Cuba you would get. I went to a private school in Cuba, uh, and they would, from an early age, start teaching you English. So not I knew more the writing. I could read more than that I was able to speak at that time. It was easier for me to read. because that's what I was more comfortable with. And then eventually you get more comfortable speaking the language. But that's what I remember.
Did you go to high school in the United States?
Yes, I went to an old girls' high school in Elizabeth, Baton High School. It was all girls. As a matter of fact, my brother told me that the building was demolished about 2 years ago. It was wonderful, wonderful education. I still remember that, thinking about this interview. And then I started thinking, wow, how times have changed. Because at that time, the student body, as well as the teachers, the administrators, the teachers, uh, compared to today's norm, which is the dress form is more relaxed. At that time, you get dressed to go to school as if you were going to work in an office. And the teachers all wore jackets and ties, and the female teachers wore business suits. And then I think, wow, talking about how times have changed, that's a significant factor. But it was a very good education. Then I went to a business college called Grad Business College for 2 years, and I learned typing, shorthand, all of that. But I come from a family of journalists that I found out here many years ago that my father's father or grandfather had founded the first newspaper in town many, many moons ago. So I always loved writing. It was in my nature. I still do. I was not good in math. My father was, but not me. But the writing came naturally. So I was always geared to that. That's why I always say that I feel blessed that I was able to work doing what to me didn't seem like a chore, like something, oh my God, I have to go to work. No, I truly enjoy what I did. And from the earliest time that I can remember, I've always been an open personality. I love meeting people. So one thing leads to the other. They go together.
A few more questions about high school. Did you have any teachers that kind of jumped out to you as just being extraordinary?
No, not really. I have to say no. I have very good teachers, very excellent teachers, but extraordinary, no.
Okay.
Maybe at that time I did, but I've forgotten. It's been so many. Oh, I hate to admit, it's been so many years ago.
You said that after high school, you went to a business college.
Yeah.
Uh, what did you see most of your classmates do after they graduated high school? Did they also go to college?
They went into the business world. They were, and I kept some friends through the years, but eventually I didn't have a connection to those people that I knew in high school. And you change your lifestyle, and things change. So I have no idea what they did after that.
Okay.
Remember, this was prior to the internet. Nowadays, if Facebook was in effect at that time, I'm sure we would have kept in touch. But there was no Facebook, no internet, no social communications like that. So you lose contact. Whereas today, you put a picture on Facebook and then you hear from people that have known you 20, 30 years ago and they still remember. And then you reconnect. That's the amazing part about the internet. That's the truly amazing part, the reconnections.
Have you reconnected with some of those women?
No, because I wouldn't even remember, except for one. I wouldn't, I wouldn't. It's been very, very many years ago, a
Can
long
you tell
time.
me a little bit more about that one? You said except for one.
She was, her name was Anna. She was, her parents were from Italy. And we were very, very good friends. I went to see her many years later. I found her name in an old phone book, and surprisingly enough, she had kept the same phone number. And I went to visit her. She had gotten married. She had 2 kids, and that was it. And then you won.
Do
Daily
you know?
life, busy life.
Hmm, do, I'm sorry. Do you know what she did for a living?
Yes, she was a supervisor for an insurance company. So she had been working for an insurance company for a long time when I met her at that time. I said, wow, so many years in the same job.
Can you tell me a little bit about the school, the college you went to, the program?
It was just a simple college, business school. They would just teach you the basics, nothing, not like today.
Mhm. During those years, how would you spend most of your time?
I would, uh, I wasn't that, what would I say? Like, I would say my grandson is very sociable. He has so many friends. So he wants to go out. He doing it. I was kind of an introvert during those years. I wasn't that, I didn't need to go out that much. Like I see my youngest grandson do. He's always inventing something. So we would go to plays in New York. I'd go to the movies. I had a set of friends at that time that I'm not keeping in touch with. I haven't, I had, but I lost contact with them. So we would do the normal things, go shopping, go to the movies, um, and that would be basically it.
In college, did you have any favorite professors?
Quite frankly, no.
After finishing your program, I know you started a weekly newspaper agency with your husband. Before we
Mhm.
talk about the business, can you
Mhm.
tell me how you met your husband?
Oh, I met my ex-husband, the father of my 2 daughters, in New York City, where I went with a friend of mine uh, to buy, and don't ask me why now, because from Elizabeth to New York, we are trying to buy a pair of skates. But see, going into the city at that time wasn't a big deal. So we would go frequently. And we met him at a store, and we must have been speaking in Spanish when he approached us. And, oh, who are you? Oh, I heard you speak in Spanish. Where do you come from? Oh, I'm from Cuba. Oh, I'm also from Cuba. And then he was very friendly, skinny man, friendly. And he kept on talking, and we went out and we walked around, and we ended up that we exchanged phone numbers. Um, then he said, "Oh, I'm going to come and visit you. What's the bus number that I have to take?" And I said, "Well, you go to Port Authority and you get on a bus and you get off here and there." Never thinking that he would actually do it. Lo and behold, a week later, he's calling and he said, "Oh, I'm at the terminal." And remember, at that time, there were no cell phones. You have to call the house phone. That's another thing that some of the kids nowadays, you show them an old-fashioned phone. They don't even know where to put the finger at that time. Uh, talk about the how times change. So he said, I'm going to visit you. I'll be in such and such a bed. We figured what time. And that was it. Then we started dating, and that was it. That was it. So talk about it, the stars meeting at the same time. Unbelievable.
And then after you two met, how did you decide to start your business?
Well, it didn't happen right away. He started as a plumber's assistant. He used to live in New York, and he started as a plumbing assistant. Then he left that job, and then he went to work for this company, and they were making garments. And then he said, well, this is a nice opportunity. Why don't I start selling garments on the side? So he was always um, a business oriented person. Even in Cuba, his story goes that as a child, um, he was always like doing something, inventing something with the kids in the neighborhood. He would charge them to do this or that. And then eventually he met this friend, a Cuban journalist, and he had a magazine. He was working for a magazine, and he started learning. And at that time, nothing, no computerized, there were no computers. They had to do it the old-fashioned way. You had to write the articles on a regular typewriter, and then they would be sent to the printing shop where it's a whole, when you think about modern technology and the advances, like nowadays, everything, you just sit at the computer and then you can send it off and they print it. Well, it is a dying business anyway. So as a salesperson, he got the idea, why don't we start a magazine where we write about things that are going on in town. I'm talking specifically Union City, New Jersey, which is in Hudson County, where at that time, after we got married, the population was mostly Cubans who had recently arrived from Cuba. So there was a need for this kind of newspaper publicity. People wanted to know what was going on in the community, and it was very anti-Castro. So there were a lot of political protests. We would go to New York if they had someone from the Cuban government at the UN, so we would go and protest against why is that government official here in the United States at the UN. It was very active. It was a very exciting time in the community because the Cuban exiles, what they brought to the town. Don't forget that these people came over with nothing because you were not allowed to leave the country with anything. So you had to start from scratch. What that means is that when they found a job and they were able to find an apartment, then what happens is that you need to buy furniture, you need to buy clothes eventually, and that's what helped the local businesses. And slowly but surely, the community started to grow, and it became very vital and a thriving community. And not only at that time it was mostly Cubans, but we have also had in Union City, I always compare it to a salad. There are tomatoes and lettuce and cucumbers, but I don't know if I can compare it to other parts of the country, but somehow this mix has always worked. And we have always gotten along. This community was founded by the Germans. All the municipal documents were written in German because it was mostly German speaking, and so was the government. Then came the Irish, and then the Italians, and then the Hispanic, and that's how it's been. So it's always been, they call it a blue collar community because a lot of the people who live in town work in blue collar, so-called blue collar towns, jobs. But I like it. I like it. I find that very, to me, when you have people living side by side of different backgrounds, that's what makes it interesting. Not everybody the same or doing the same kind of job. That's homogeneous. Everything the same, not exciting. And here, and you have something to, people have something to contribute. I always tell my children, especially my grandson, I said, if you should learn something new every day. And maybe that something new that you learn every day is going to come from a totally unexpected source. Maybe the person that you don't think has anything, you think you know it all until you speak to somebody else and he tells you something that you had no idea. Oh, I got off the subject.
No, didn't at all. Um, where was the business? Did you and your ex-husband have an office?
Yes, in Union City. We started on Bergen Line, and then we moved somewhere else. But it was always here in Union City. And as the years went, so the business flourished. The community was doing great, especially during the 80s. Business was good, and people wanted to advertise because that was my ex-husband's strong feature, that he was a good salesman. I would take care of the business at hand and the writing, and he would do the business side of it. So it was a flourishing, it was a good time. It's like, you go to the people that went to the West Coast in the 1920s, everybody, that was the golden age of the West. So that's how I look at it. Union City was a good time, but now it's also good, but it's a different makeup. It's a different makeup, but it's good. I think, where would I live? Would I prefer to live anywhere else? No, I'm right here in Union City, but we're very close to Manhattan. We're very close to the airport. I like to travel. So my eldest daughter lives here, and my youngest daughter lives in Warren, which is not that far. But it's still weird. It's so convenient, so convenient. So I love living here.
For the business, who would handle the administrative work? Who secured the office?
I would be mostly in charge of that. And remember, it wasn't like the New York Times. This was a family-owned small enterprise, so I would handle that.
Did you ever have employees?
Oh yes, yes, oh yes, yes, we did. I couldn't do everything by myself. We had some very good journalists that came from Cuba, uh, with many years of experience. They were my tutors. Actually, you could say I learned from them just about everything that you need to know to be a good reporter or a good journalist. I learned from them because they were older and they had lived and worked in Cuba.
Did you see any other women entrepreneurs like yourself?
Oh, yes, in this area, yes. Some of my advertisers, they were women with businesses, but mostly it was males who were in charge. But there were quite a few that they owned businesses around, not only in Union City but in neighboring areas. Mm-hmm.
Shifting gears a little bit, in 1963 and 64, the Equal Pay and Civil Rights Acts forbid employment discrimination. In 1970, a group of women sued Newsweek because they did the work of reporters without receiving credit or pay for it. Did you hear about these laws or the lawsuits in your industry?
Yeah, we read about it, but at that time, I think that the people that we had working for us, that they were satisfied with the working conditions and the money that they were making. We treated them, we were like a small family. We got along, we know their husbands, their wives, their children. It was a very close-knit business, family-oriented enterprise. And we did what we needed to do. We got along fabulous with them. And yes, I knew about it, but we never had an issue because we treated them well. And we respected them, and they respected us uh, in retrospect. So it was good.
How did it feel to, in your own words, realize the American dream?
Mm. You don't think about it much. At least I didn't think about, oh, I'm gonna American dream. You don't think about it. Uh, However, in my particular case, um, when you look around and you compare your lifestyle with other people that were not maybe as fortunate for whatever reason, um, then that's when it dawns on you that you're doing fairly well, you know. But it's like you have to be content with what you have to feel good about what you're doing and be content. Because I have known through my life, I feel blessed that I have met many, many people. And unfortunately, some people are never satisfied.
Mm.
And they're successful and they have the financial security that they hope someday that they would be able to achieve, but they're not happy. And
Mm.
they're always complaining about everything. And I'm glad I'm not that way.
Some people say that comparison is the thief of joy and that
Mhm.
gratitude is the cure for it. What do you think of that quote?
I had never bothered to compare myself to somebody else. You know, what is somebody else doing? I care about what I'm doing and how I'm going to get to whatever I want to do. But I think it's such a waste of time to compare or to say, oh, I'm a victim. I am a victim because I'm not skinny enough or tall enough or white enough or this or that. To me, that's a waste of time. My mother and I give a lot of credit to the way that I was brought up because my mother was a no nonsense kind of woman, very loving, very to the point. And I still remember uh, as a young child, someone came over to us and she said to my mother, oh, your daughter, she's so pretty. Oh, thank you. And then she turns around, she goes, get that off your head.
Mm.
You're just like everybody else.
Mm.
you just receive a compliment, but forget about it. You have to be smart. You have to be a good person. That was it. You know, none of this rendering tribute to children. He's not the best player in the team, and the parents are still telling him, oh, you're the best, you're the best player, you deserve a trophy. That era, that was not it, you know. So that's the way that I was brought up, but I never compare myself. No, I'm very content. Maybe because I'm a believer, and I think myself as, thank you, God. Thank you, God, for this, and thank you, God, for that. That started with the parents that I got. That's blessing number one. Your parents. I love them, and to this day, I think of them because the way they brought me up, which is sad that a lot of kids don't get this, and everything starts at home.
Very true. Changing subjects a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I know in 1974, the Equal Credit Opportunity Act prohibited sex-based discrimination in credit decisions. Do you
Mm-hmm.
remember your first time applying for credit in the United States?
I don't even remember when I got my first credit card, but I don't think I ever experienced, quite frankly, I never experienced any type of discrimination. Uh, no, no.
Do you remember the overall process of applying for a loan, either for your business or for yourself?
You just went to the bank at that time and you have to fill out the forms. And if you have good credit and you pay on time, then you get the loan. That was it. No internet again. Nowadays, everything, you fill everything out on the internet. But at that time, it was, fairly easy. You see that you have good credit, you have a good job, you're making a decent salary, you got approved. Or you didn't get approved if you didn't meet the requirements. That was it.
Did you apply for credit on your own or with your ex-husband?
Always at that time, always with my husband. Always. Always with your husband.
Why was that?
Because when you apply for credit, say you went to buy a house, so you had to get the bank approval, but the property would be in both your names. So you wouldn't be applying by yourself. You need, and at that time, I didn't bother too much with, filling out applications for credit or anything like that. That was just not my part of it.
Okay. So for your first home, did you have more than one home?
Yes, we bought a home in Union City.
And you were on the title of that home?
Of course, yeah, because we were a married couple. Yes, definitely.
Okay. I'd like to take some time to talk a little bit about your children. When did you have your first child?
Yvette was born in 1967, and Alina was born in 1971. And I'll tell you something. I sent her a text this morning. I said, Yvette, please send me the date that you were born and your sister. I'm being interviewed, and I'm sure they're going to ask me, when were you born? And most of the time, I don't even remember. She goes, oh, Mom, you're crazy. That's why I was able to answer it so fast. 1967 or 1971.
Did you always know that you wanted children?
You know, that I never had that desire or that urge that I wanted to be a mother. I never had it. Had I not been able to have children, I don't think I would have been an unhappy person, because it never came to, and now I have a dear friend from Cuba. She married young, and she always, this is my dearest, oldest friend, she lives in New Jersey. From the day she got married, she wanted to be a mother. And while they lived in Cuba, they got married for 5 years. So when they lived in Cuba, she was never able to get pregnant. And wow, this was the thing that was really getting to her, till they came to the United States, and she found this doctor, and lo and behold, she became pregnant. She had 5 children, one after the other after that. She loves being a mom, but she always wanted to be a mother. I never had that. I never had it. So I would have been very content not being a mother. But I'm happy I'm a mother. But it wasn't something that I wanted, that I was looking forward to. And I've
Did
been
you
a
see
good mother.
did you see a lot of women in your community getting pregnant around the time you did?
Well, most of my friends at that age, when you're in an age group that people get married more or less a few years apart, and then you start having children, uh, most of my friends, except for the one that had 5, because then once she got the first one, she kept having more. They mostly had 2 or 3 at the most. Not large families. Not large families. I don't know how they do it. When you have more than two is hard enough. But 3, 4, and 5, that's a big commitment.
Mm.
Motherhood or fatherhood is a serious commitment. But like I say, you don't need to be a mother or father to be happy. Marriage does not automatically signify that you're going to be happy. Oh my God, you have to be married by a certain age, because no, I don't believe like that. I never thought like that. That's how it is.
The Pregnancy Discrimination Act, which prohibited discrimination based on pregnancy and related conditions, passed in 1978. Did this law have any effect on you or your business?
No, not really.
During your experiences with the hospital during your
Mhm.
pregnancies, uh, you mentioned that your gynecologist was male. Were most of the doctors
Yes,
men?
yes. At that time, they were mostly male. Mhm. That's my experience.
Were you ever the patient of a woman doctor?
Not at that time. Not at that time. So I get my yearly checkup, and my doctor happens to be a woman doctor. And I recently had an episode. I needed some minor surgery, and it's a woman surgeon.
Hmm.
So it's funny because I started with male doctors, and now I have a female, but it doesn't matter. Um, it's just where you get the care that's important. Uh, I don't want to get into it, but I had an episode a few years ago, so I went to the best hospital in New York for this particular care. And I had the best female surgeon. So my experience with, even though it was very traumatizing. But I think I sailed through that because of the quality care that I got. So just the same as having good parents, having a good doctor at a good hospital makes the difference. So I'll be one of those people, if anything happened to me again, God forbid, I'll go, that hospital? No way. Go the other way. Go the other way. I'm going to that hospital. You go to that one. Me? No way in hell. I'm not going to that hospital. You take me to the other.
You said that you kind of always disliked doctors and going to the doctors.
Yeah,
Why
I
is
don't.
that?
Why is that? I don't. I don't know. I My grandson calls me when calling me an old citizen. When I retired, instead of a senior citizen, he calls me an old citizen. When I became officially an old citizen, I look around and most of my friends, they go to doctors. They have aches and pains and they take medication. I think, is this the way I want to go? I don't think I want to go that way between doctors and medicine. So, what can I do to help myself? Well, I can eat healthy, I can move my bones and exercise as much as I can. I can sleep. I can try to keep a positive attitude, not complain, because what happens at people my age, they spend their time, not all of them, but a lot. They complain about it, or they think they know it all. Then they try to tell the young people how in my days, this was, well, some things were better, but that doesn't mean everything. So that's just how I feel about it.
What things were better?
I think what things were better, definitely. The family connection, the sense of community, the neighborhood links. I can tell you that my daughter has friends from since they were in first grade and kindergarten from the neighborhood. They went to the same grammar school, same high school. They're still friends today. Some of them are moved away, but they live within a certain radius and they still keep in touch. Now they have children of their own and it's like a second family. I don't see that happening nowadays because when you live in a large building and you don't know who the neighbors are, only in passing, that has killed the neighborhood sense, which is what I like in Union City, that it used to be, you know, everybody on the block. Anything happened, everybody came to your rescue to help you out. I like that sense of community and neighborhood. I think is being lost because you move to the suburbs, and yes, you get to know some of your neighbor, you become friends, but it's not the same. It's not the same. So I think in that respect, yes. And people are busy nowadays because the fathers work, the mothers also work. So everybody's out working. And it used to be when I think of my daughters growing up, that most of the mothers were home. So after school, they would visit each other's homes, they would eat at their friend's house. It's different. It's different. Doesn't mean it's bad, but it's different. Definitely different. I think human connections is the key to being grounded. You need to connect to other humans.
What do you think are the best ways to make those connections?
I think you have to be open to new ideas, to meeting new people, maybe people that are different from your backgrounds, and have an open communication, learning where they come from, how do they feel, but it's always best when you share ideals, but you cannot be judgmental. I don't like people who are judgmental, put labels on other people. I always try not to be like that. No, I don't like judgmental. I don't like over criticizing other people. You have to understand, but for that you need history, because to understand a person that comes from a certain country, you should know something about that person and where they come from. Ignorance is the worst thing. I don't believe there's discrimination. I believe that people who discriminate too much are ignorant people.
Hmm. Do you think that some of these changes have affected men and women differently?
I think in certain cases, yes. Some changes in society tend to affect you, whether you want to or not, to a certain extent. But who you are as your essence as a human being does not change. And you also have to be able to adapt, because life is about change, evolution. I may wish that my life as it is right now will remain so for time immemorial. But that's not what's going to happen, because you don't know from day to day all the change. And you're not going to be happy 24/7. There's no such thing. There's states of you can be happy one moment and not happy the next, or things happen, like they say. Bad things happen to good people sometimes. So adapting yourself, because life is not fair. I remember my children when they were young, oh, mom, but this is not fair. Life is not fair. So get over it. Get over it.
Speaking of times when life isn't fair and when things get challenging,
Mm-hmm.
I know around 1992, you and your husband divorced. What was the hardest part of this process?
Um, when you've been married for a long time, and in our case, we had been in business for a long time, it's hard to start a new life. It's never a pleasant experience, especially when the person that you're trying to break away from does not share your idea, and then it becomes more difficult to break. But there's always a positive to change. And no matter how difficult divorce, thank God you're not going to be a divorce lawyer. But it is, if you know people who've gone through that, you hear very different stories, but mostly there's a war period. And then time passes, and then you get over it, and you're there for the person. But it's a difficult transition, very difficult. It's okay, like everything in life, you get over it.
How did the divorce affect the business?
Uh, well, at that time, uh, I left. He kept the business for a few years after that. But even at a local level with a weekly enterprise, a weekly newspaper, um, the future was not as bright as when we started, because you could see that the business community was changing. Uh, they were not that interested in advertising, or they didn't need to advertise as much as when you started. So the writing was on the wall. Things were changing, and then eventually, the business closed years later with him. Um, but it was something that you could see was coming.
What
Like,
caused some of these changes?
well, when we started, let's say you had a business and you needed people to visit your, mostly it was local businesses. You needed people to know where you were, what you were selling, and the best way was to advertise in a local newspaper in your language. But then time went on and things started to change, and they had their own customer base. They were not in that much need of attracting new customer. They already have the customer base. So why would I be spending money advertising if I already had the customers? Like nowadays, if you go to a candy store where they used to sell newspapers, they hardly have any. That is sad. That is very sad. People don't realize that we needed those independent voices. But that's another topic. That's another topic. Um, Having newspaper uh, is necessary. Reading a newspaper, to me, I'd rather read a book than read it online. They have these books that you can read online, and not really. I'm not against it, but I like, because I'm old school in that sense. I like the feeling of holding a book in my hands, turning the pages, looking at the words. I don't know. It's just, I feel good inside.
Hmm.
Yes, you can read it online, but it doesn't convey the same feeling. I want an attachment to what I'm reading. And I don't think in that sense, the practically demise of the newspapers and magazines for that matter, because it becomes very expensive nowadays to print out in glossy paper. So there's hardly, very expensive. That's one of the things that I don't think is good. What happened to newspapers? But that puts me in a classification that I'm from the old generation. But I think democracy needs newspaper, independent newspaper. I don't want somebody who wants Mickey Mouse and Pluto in charge of a newspaper. I don't think it's the same.
Hmm.
I want real journalists, investigative journalists. Our past history testifies to the need for that. And we don't have that nowadays. Or not they don't have it, is that it's not what it used to be. And that's regretful.
Speaking of reading in print, earlier you said that didn't really like to read so much when you were little. You just
Mhm,
read for school.
mhm.
When did that change? When did you start to like reading? And what would you read?
Uh, I think during my high school years, that's when I really tried to. I love to read about, well, number one, history. Um, I have a special affection for military generals. Eisenhower, Patton is my all-time favorite. I I don't believe that you, and I understand some people that want to erase certain parts of our not so glorious history, but to think that you're going to delete that, no, because let's say Robert E. Lee was a military genius, regarded. Okay, so he was fighting on the wrong side, but that doesn't take away that he was a military genius. So are you going to delete that? So you can say, okay, so he was flawed in his ideas. What he represented is not right by any measure, but taking away everything, military genius. Napoleon Bonaparte, one of history's greatest military men. He was a genius, but a lot of the things he did were not so so high. But I like reading history. I like the poets. I'm an equal opportunity reader. I give everybody a chance to read many things, very varied.
Speaking of, uh, restricting reading and kind
Mhm.
of erasing history, in our country, free speech is very important. And many people say that when you don't like what somebody else says, the answer is more speech, not less speech. What do you
I
think of
totally agree. You know, censure of any sort, it's not good. It's not good. It's just simply what uh, I have my own belief, but that doesn't entitle me to force them on you. You may be very different from mine. You may have very different ideas or beliefs than mine. But what gives me the right to say that I'm better than you are? Therefore, you can't do this, you can't read this. No, you make your, it's like there's a program on TV. I never watch it. I know it exists. And maybe I may have watched a little segment once in a while, but I see people writing things against this program on Facebook that I'm not addicted to. But from time to time, I check with friends. Oh, I check the nonsense on Facebook. Oh, they have to take this program off the air. Hello, you're your own censor. You have the dial or the TV changer in your hand. You don't agree with what they say in that program. Change the channel. Change it. Save some electricity. Turn off the TV. But don't tell me I have to cancel that program. Why? So that's what I think about.
that? Backing up a little bit to our conversation of divorce, uh,
Mm.
did you have anyone helping you through the process of your own divorce?
I didn't tell anybody. that I was going to get divorced, except for my two cousins that are my sisters. Not even my employees knew about it. They found out about it afterwards. Oh, by the way, I'm leaving. I got divorced. I don't believe in advertising your personal life or telling people. Don't tell people your problems, because those that don't like you a lot are going to get happy that you're going through difficult times. Mm. Don't tell them when you're truly happy, because they're going to envy you. Mm. So you keep your personal stuff to yourself. And when you're truly, truly happy, keep it to yourself. Because most people, I hate to say this, but only your true, true friends are going to, oh, I'm so happy for you. Oh, I'm rooting for you. So don't advertise it. So what I did, I found a good friend of mine to represent me. And I got another good friend of mine to represent my husband, because he was going too slow finding someone. So I said, okay, so-and-so is going to represent you. So that was it. No big deal. I didn't go crying or, oh, this is happening. Oh, it happens to other people. So that's it. You go on.
Did you know other women who went through a divorce?
Oh, I knew a lot. See, at that time, the thing was, I have a friend that they had a good marriage. He was a very successful businessman, but they were not the best suited for each other. But she would say that, she's funny, I loved her dearly. I'm not getting divorced. I'm not walking out of this marriage. I'd rather wait till he dies or push him down the steps when he's in a wheelchair. And I no, you don't. If things are not working out for you, call it quits. And if you really want anybody to think about you, you leave them when they still are in love with you. Don't wait till you're asked to leave. Mm. Remember, you walk out before that happens. Mm. You like that?
I do. I like the saying, it's important to protect your peace.
And be who you are. Mm. Because, getting off the subject, but when you look around, a lot of the so-called very happy married couples, they're not. Mm. Then another set of circumstances plays in, so the children, the financial obligations, but are they happily married? But I happen to have known couples that were so fitted to be together, so happy, so in love with each other, that's what a marriage should be. But if you're not going to be truly happy, then why stay in that relationship? I don't understand that. Mm. I don't share that. So I think my way of thinking is kind of atypical to what my friends of this age group think about. But my mother always said that if you found people like swimmers going the way you're supposed to go with the current, you're finally going against the current. Don't expect to see Amada going with the current. She's going to be against the current. And That's it.
After the divorce and you broke away from the business, what did you do for a living?
Okay. I was fortunate enough um, that I happened to have friends in government, in local government, um, that offered me a job uh, for positions that they thought that I could fulfill because of my writing skills and my people skills. And so I accepted a job. So I work on two political campaigns for re-election of the then mayor of Union City and a congressman in the area. And then I was hired by the Union City mayor at that time, uh, Mr. Bruce D. Walter, as the UEC coordinator for the city of Union City. Um,
What was the UEC?
the UEC, the Urban Enterprise Zone, 3% sales tax, which
Mm,
is no longer in effect, that offer businesses who join the program the ability to charge consumers 3% sales tax instead of the 6%. And then that money went to a special account that then the municipality could use for programs to benefit the business community, like garbage collection, buying street lamps, um, the facade program to improve the look of the businesses. So it's a lot of good things, but then that program was disconnected,
mm.
and that's when I retired.
Mm.
But
Would
that's
you
when,
work in an office building?
yes, but my job was mainly visiting. It was being in the business community, visiting the businesses and getting them to sign up for the program. And then once a month, all coordinators would go to Trenton, and you had the meetings and then present the projects. Like you had a project to buy street lamps, so you had to write the project and then submit it and then revise it, and then you go and present it to the board in Trenton. So what that job entailed at that time was writing ability, talking to people, and then going before a board and present your project and hopefully getting it approved. And sometimes fighting to get it approved because not everybody was in favor of it. So you have to defend your project. So it's like going to court and
Mm,
facing the judge, but instead of one judge, you had a couple.
mm.
So that was it.
Did you work with many women at that time?
No, no,
Mm.
I never been uh, a kind of, like some women only have women friends. I have friends. I have had good women friends, but it's mostly male friends.
Why do you think that
But
is?
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe because the business I was in, or I don't know. But some women only have women friends. They're great, but no, I guess mixed men and women. But that's
Mm. Now moving to the present. How do you like to spend your time?
okay. I spend my time. I am a fanatic of taking care of myself. By a fanatic, I mean I exercise on a regular basis, same way that I take a shower or brush my teeth. Even if I can't do it during the day, I won't go to sleep until I exercise. Mm. I am a walker. I believe that walking is the best exercise for you. So I try to walk. I eat healthy, drink a lot of water. I love to read. And I help my family. I'm always on call. I'm like a doctor, an emergency doctor. I need this, I need that. And that's how I spend my time. I go out to dinner with my gentleman friend, go out to dinner. I love to travel. I'm happy that I have traveled extensively. That's what I love to do. I love to travel. And I basically keep in touch with my friends, watch some TV, though not a lot, but watch TV. And now that I have a roommate, I'm going back to school because I'm reading a lot of the things that he's reading, so I can keep the lines of communication with him open. So I have more in common. Oh, I love to listen to music. I have a very eclectic taste in music. So I listen to a lot of music.
At the beginning of the interview, I described you as a Cuban American woman, a former weekly newspaper agency owner, and a grandmother. How would you describe yourself?
Oh, that's very difficult. Oh, I've never been asked that. I think that I have to describe myself. My daughters would probably conclude that they find my way of thinking and the things I do as very eccentric, happy-go-lucky, I have opinions, opinionated to a certain extent, though I'm not. I respect other people's way of thinking. I'm doing the best that I can. And if I knew that I was going to be gone from this earth soon, I have no regrets. No regrets. I always said that if I lived to a very old age and I was sitting in a rocking chair somewhere, that I wouldn't be sitting there complaining, that I would be sitting there listening to other ladies like myself complain and thinking, gee, I have no regrets. No regrets. I'm content.
This next question then might be a little hard.
That was hard enough.
What professional accomplishment are you proudest of?
I think the fact that while we had the newspaper writing, interviewing people in the community that were experiencing difficult situations and bringing those stories to light. I still find pride in that, to make it, because helping humankind, it's important. Caring about people. And while I was working for the municipal government, that also included helping people, businessmen, with different things that they needed to do. So I always had this urge to help in whatever measure I can. That's what you can do.
Mhm. I hope I do. I hope I do.
Mm-hmm.
As we close our interview, thank you for sharing your story with me and our audience. I was honored to hear your story and am excited about the impact it will have.
Well, thank you